Well, good morning, everybody. Last night, NOAA released its newest national temperature and precipitation ranks maps. I'm going to show you what the data look like for the month of January. So on the whole, for the whole country, we were 124th warmest out of 129 years. This goes back to 1895. If we keep kind of sliding down here, though, we can see it by region and also by min versus max. But I want to take you to this one. So this is the statewide average temperature ranks. And so we start to see here that there were a lot of places, especially in the Northeast, that were kind of setting all-time record warmest Januaries. And on the precipitation side of it, come right down here, we can see that, remember back in early January, the strong onshore flow that came across, delivering a lot of snow here, big snows in the mountains, and of course into California really set that area up. But we missed a lot of the Northwest all the way here into North Dakota. Things were drier at times along the Gulf Coast down into Florida, but some of the recent systems have dipped down here far enough that at the end of January, kind of revived those precipitation stats. So I just wanted to kind of pick up on this and make sure that you saw it. Also in today's report, I do dig a little bit deeper into the Great Lakes ice issue. Show this graphic here compared to average, which is in the blue line. You know, the Great Lakes ice concentration now just a hair above 10%. Normally should be somewhere here about 35 to 37%. So this could be important for the eastern side of the Great Lakes, those states and provinces that are there that, looking at spring temperatures. So we just kind of discussed that in today's report. Now, what we're looking at, though, over the next 7 days is some still more mild air. So here's Friday's high temperatures as we just play this forward into Saturday and Sunday. We got some cooler air that skirts along the south. Let's show you why that's going to happen in a few moments. There's going to be a really interesting system today. It's going to dig down into Louisiana and then eject over the weekend here into North Carolina, talking about some snow in the Appalachian Mountains. But do notice how mild things are to the north of this compared to normal, and that continues to be the story around the Great Lakes. Going into next week, though, do you see the much colder air that's in the west? There's a deep trough that's diving into the west, and I'm watching this one carefully because from next Tuesday into Wednesday, a large warm sector opens, and we do see that this system, as it kind of dives into the southern plains, will, as we've been talking about, kind of curl around that colder air and run up here and toward the Great Lakes. And getting out there into next week, there's going to be a risk of strong to severe storms once again across the south with this setup. And on top of that, we got to be talking about some snow. But I just want to point out, since we're talking about temperatures early in this forecast video, much of the next 15 days keeps the coldest air anchored to the west. We see that after mid-month, some cooler air tries to come into the Canadian prairie, but this 5-day average suggests that there'll be shots of colder air, not sustained Arctic air. And we may not see really colder conditions diving into the Canadian prairie till the end of this month. And what's interesting about this pattern is, again, when you keep a lot of colder air in the western part of North America and very mild air east, there's open Gulf transport around some sort of a subtropical ridge, and this just tends to keep a very active pattern. It is not the right pattern, though, to deliver the moisture to California. I mean, you're going to get systems that dive in and run like this. But overall, it is a pattern that throughout the Mississippi Basin could start to work on some of the long-standing drought issues we've been talking about. So again, we cover this in today's report, and we just got to keep an eye on this because down there at 40 centimeters, we still see fall's drought. It's still showing up here. So this pattern between now and mid-April, I think the most important thing we watch if we're east of the Rocky Mountains is what's going on here with our subsurface soil moisture. The other part of this is, will the flow return better moisture to the west? We still need a lot more, believe it or not, in the Intermountain West, especially in the Pacific Northwest, to ensure we've got good reservoir health going into 2023's growing season. Now, the next 10 days, we don't see that in the west. The flow, even though there's a couple of cutoff lows, it does deliver better snow into the Four Corners states, but we may have to wait to the end of this month into early March before we start to see the better flow pick up for the west. But you do notice we do have a couple of areas that are going to be quite wet, plus some clippers that come through Canada, that could deliver some snow into those regions. So I want to talk about the first one here. It's today moving through Texas. It's this short wave right here that by the time we get into Sunday, we'll be ejecting out of Louisiana. So this little wave here closes itself off. The main flow kind of runs over the top, so it's a cutoff low. And we got some better evidence today as to where this is going to go through the Carolinas. So let's grab a look at it with the high-res NAM. So let's cue this up for about 10 o'clock this morning. Here we go. We're going to see that low forming. Now, all of the moisture out ahead of it is just running over the top of the subtropical ridge. There's still on the back side of that low that we dealt with earlier this week, some lake effect snow and some snow bursts into the interior of New England. And there is another low. Watch this one if you're over in the west as it cuts down south. But take a look at this wave right here coming through the Arklatex region. And that's going to be the wave that dives in by Saturday afternoon into down here near New Orleans. And then it is going to eject and run itself right over the Appalachian Mountains. Now, this snowfall forecast for northern Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky is going to be extremely challenging. There will be heavy rain, storms to the south, but that snowfall forecasting through there, I'll be honest with you, it'll be a nowcast situation for me. How quickly we change over to snow, what the liquid to snow ratios look like, and how dependent this will be on elevation, those are all the key factors here. So I did bring along two forecasts. The first one on the left-hand side here is through 6 a.m. Central Time on Monday, looking at the European model. So it's got the heaviest snows at highest elevation. Not a whole lot into western North Carolina. You can see potentially some heavier snow in parts of this part of Tennessee, but this is from this morning's National Digital Forecast database. Notice the differences here. So this is, comes from NOAA. The other one comes from the Europeans. We're just looking at two different solutions. And I'll just be honest with you. I could speculate all day long on this, but the reality is I'm just going to have to watch this event all weekend to see how much snow we do end up getting here. Just stay aware of that, please. Next, I want to show you our next 7 days because the pattern stays quite active throughout a large corridor right in through here. We could see 1 to 4 inches of rain in parts of the southeast from these next few storms. And again, there is severe weather risk mid to late next week down here in the lower Mississippi Basin once again. The west, the Canadian Prairie, the northern plains are out of this pattern. It's not set up to deliver moisture to this area, and that continues to exacerbate the drought issues we've been seeing in Montana, North Dakota, and parts of the Canadian Prairie. And even though there is moisture coming into the west, including some great snows that are going to come into the Four Corners states, we have to see the pattern get rid of this split look to it in the Gulf of Alaska to start to return that moisture. So let's have a look at the combination of the GFS on the left and the European on the right, looking at their 0Z runs from today. So we've already watched through Sunday, so you can see the models where they're anticipating the GFS here, the European there on that snowfall. So very different solutions. See how the GFS is parked right over the highest elevation here in the Appalachian Mountains. The European tries to put more snow farther into Tennessee. That is the challenge with this forecast. That low then tries to run up the East Coast but gets knocked offshore because of but the lack of good placement of a big high pressure cell that's to its north over Quebec. If we had that, this would be a big nor'easter. So what we're watching here by the time we get into Monday is the next wave. There's two of them, one here and one here, but we're going to watch this next wave come out of the panhandles, and it is going to run right up into, as you see in both models, through the Midwest. And to the south, but we could see some stronger storms here coming across the Mississippi Valley, but this is not the one that I'm concerned about. Here's the second wave, the big one. This is the one that delivers the snow throughout the Intermountain West, but really here into the Four Corners states. And this is just a deeper trough. So you notice that by next Wednesday morning, getting now in there to Wednesday evening, as this low emerges, the European's a bit farther to the south and slower, as is normal for the model differences, and it delivers a lot of snow. This would be critical to the plains at this point. I mean, absolutely critical to get this snow in place. It is in both models out there next Wednesday. Now, the GFS races the system out quickly. See how quickly it's already to the Great Lakes. Broad shield of rain opens up here with storms to the south. That's the storms I'm concerned about. The European model, a bit slower farther to the south, so it's trying to deliver more of its snow into Missouri, out of Kansas, into Iowa, northern and western Illinois, and then into southern Wisconsin. Heavy rains out ahead of it here, including some storms. This will be a very windy system next Thursday. And then it pulls into Ontario and Quebec, and then leaves into the northeast. And some colder air does come in behind this system. Okay, remember you saw that in the forecast a moment ago. So after that, I'm watching to see if there's any shifts in the pattern that could start to deliver better moisture to California. I'm not seeing them until the end of this month, possibly into early March, but there are some signals, and that's overall a positive sign. But I want to talk about the snowfall, and we're going to look at the GFS first. Let's blow this up. There we go. So as we play this forward, that's the GFS solution on the snow. Notice how I didn't show you that earlier It's very aggressive all the way up to Virginia and West Virginia on the snow too. Then you see the next system early in the week, the GFS puts most of its snow farther to the north in Minnesota, but after coming through the northwest, putting down decent snow up to 20 to 24 inches of snow in the Cascades, better snows throughout the Rocky Mountains, this system ejects in the GFS. And notice that going out there, I'm just going to park this out here 1 week, okay? It tries to put most of its snow, again, over the western Great Lakes. Look at the difference between that and the European. So this is the GFS 7-day. This is the European 7-day. Dips the system farther to the south, brings the snow over Kansas, and then delivers it right in that same path or close to it where we just saw the snow from the most recent system, although it's a little bit farther to the east. So this will be kind of top priority for me to watch after I'm done watching this one over the weekend. Plus, I do like the fact that both of these are bringing some good snows into the Cascades, some snow into the Sierra Nevada, but great snow here in the Four Corner states. I mean, it's snow, so I'm happy to see it. Okay, to finish this up, I want to show you what the latest outlook is for the next 10 days on getting at least 3 inches of snow. And so what we see here is this, again, is just a probability map. And what's important about this is I just want to compare where we currently sit on snow water equivalent. So this is the latest map I've got on snow water equivalent. And just to put this in perspective, let's look at last year at this time. So there are some pretty significant differences. This is this year and last year. Notice how much more was in the Northeast. That's where we've had very mild air. Look how much less there was throughout the West compared to this year. Very important stuff here. As you look at today's report, I did include information about what's been going on in South America, including some recent precipitation maps showing the very wet conditions that have been in parts of Brazil. And also, we just covered the latest forecast there. So take a look at it, and we'll talk again on Monday. Appreciate it. Thank you.